Seatopeninsincity, a podcast covering all things about the Las Vegas poker scene. I'm Spike. Joining me as always is birthday boy Andrew Pieper. Today we have a special guest, Patrick, a longtime friend and poker player. How you doing, Patrick?
Doing all right. How about you?
Hanging in there. Andrew, first, happy birthday. Second of all, please don't kill yourself. I know that you're upset about Negreanu busting out of the 50K Poker Players Championship. How are you feeling?
Words just can't even describe. You just don't know what it's like to go through the pain, to see the chip lead, 6 left, and then bust 6 or 5th, whatever. Yeah, it's just pretty gut-wrenching.
So my mother died about 11 and a half years ago. How would you compare, on like a scale of sadness, seeing a parent die versus seeing Negreanu busting out of a 50K event?
Like my whole family.
God damn it. This is why I hate poker players. All right, let's get into it. It is July something, 6th, 7th, whatever the fuck. The World Series of Poker is still going on. It has been a fantastic summer for a lot of people. There are a lot of people making very good decisions, a lot of people making very bad decisions, myself included. Patrick, why don't you tell us a little bit about the events you've been playing at the World Series and other events around town and how you've been doing?
Well, I am an extremely not wealthy man, so I've been playing all the cheap events. I played the Colossus to start off the series. Min cash, didn't quite make day 2. I played several deep stacks, have 8 complete shit in all of them. It was real bad. The good one so far is I made day 2 of the Giant, which tomorrow I'll be going back for that, and I have like 8 blinds, so maybe I can get lucky and hopefully, make a final table, maybe bank a bracelet, good shit like that.
There you go. Now, I know you've also been playing at the TI quite a bit with the two of us. I know that you've been playing other events. Have you done anything worth mentioning at any of those?
I mean, I've shipped a couple at the TI, but it's kind of, to use the phrase, poop flinging would be pretty appropriate. So it's kind of, having a score there doesn't exactly fill you with the pride that a World Series bracelet might, but it helps that out. Apart from that, I've just been playing Omaha High at the Boulder Station. Can highly recommend it if you want a game that nobody knows how to play with gigantic pots. It's one of the best.
Yeah, is that the 4-8?
Yeah, 4-8 Omaha High, and I'd say the average pot size tilts toward $80 to $100.
Jesus.
It is really ridiculous.
I've heard that before from a buddy of mine named Alabama Dave, and he likes talking about that game, especially late Saturday night, early Sunday, because it's all the degenerate drunks chasing good money after bad. So hopefully that sounds pretty exploitable, actually.
It's really good. If only anyone in the world knew how to play that game well, they could probably make a killing. But as for me, I'm just in there donking it up with the rest of them, folding, 10 to 20% of my hands and just getting in there and mixing it up.
Wow. All right. Andrew, I know that you're, still recovering after a rough 4th of July. 2 days later, I bet you're still a little bit hungover after the stories you were just telling me. But why don't you tell us about how your World Series has been going?
It's been a little bit of a roller coaster. Started off fantastic. I think I cashed like 8 of 12 tournaments. Cash was going really well. I had like 6 winning sessions in a row. And then all good things must come to an end, and could proceed on a slight downswing and bricked off tournaments. Cash just got on the wrong side of a lot of coolers. And then finally now, the past couple weeks, been trending a little bit back upwards towards being profitable for the summer. So that's been good. Haven't played any WSOP events other than the ones I talked about last podcast with the tag team, and that did not amount to anything. I did play I satellited into the 570 500K guarantee at the Nugget, which ended up getting $1 million. And then I I get aces and against jacks for a 150 big blind pot, and I flop the nuts with top set, and then he runs out the straight. So that one stung a little bit, and just continuing to grind some of the small dailies, and probably gonna put one bullet into the giant. I've heard it's equates to about the same as Colossus. It's more chips, but then it's faster structure, or faster shorter levels, so it equates to about the same thing. But that's what a lot of these dailies are anyway. So I feel like I'd be probably plus EV in that and take a shot at it.
Yeah, the Giant is... I hope it sticks around because it looks like a great event. Not something I can run this year, unfortunately, but, I mean, it feels like a typical Las Vegas daily tournament, which is something that we're all pretty familiar with. And hopefully that amounts to an edge. But yeah, I remember you telling me about that beat that you took at the Nugget, and it was just brutal. What was the percentage on that after the flop? You were
98.1% on the flop, and then turn queen, river 10 against jacks. So
is that the kind of thing where you just say, well, that's poker, and you walk away, or do you pull like a Phil Hellmuth and flip the table?
Yeah, it was I would equate it to where Mike McDermott is, he loses to Teddy's Full House, and the pot's just getting scooped away from him, and he's just sitting there stunned. He thought he had it, and then all his dreams
just binked away.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that the two of you have at least been making some money. I have been getting murdered, absolutely destroyed this series. I have run probably the same amount of tournaments that I run in any other series, whether it be the TI, dailies around town, a couple of the deep stacks at the series. I cashed one. I had one break-even cash session, and that's been about it. And everything else, I've just been getting brutalized. And I don't know what it is. My last 4 tournaments that I've played, I have been at minimum an 85% favorite to win the hand pre-flop in the last 4 that knocked me out. So that's always fun. Nice shot to the arm there. But yeah, like I said, I really hope the Giant does stick around. How many players has that been getting? Do either of you know?
It was, like 1,600 the first week. It was, between 1,000 and 1,200 the next week. The one I made it through was week 3. I want to say there was, 1,400. This past one got, less than 1,000. Really disappointing. I don't know what happened there. I reckon the last one will be really huge because poker players love waiting till the last possible minute to get into anything.
Huh. Yeah, no, I like the fact that they're adding in smaller and smaller buy-in tournaments for the World Series. I know that probably some of the bigger pros don't appreciate it, or at least they're not going to run it anyway. But it's something that, as somebody that doesn't get to do a lot of the bigger events, this is something that I definitely appreciate. Yeah,
plus all the pros tend to get them and get shit-faced drunk, which has to be good fun.
That got to be plus EV for the rest of us, too, right?
Absolutely. No, I was one table over. It's actually in the wsop.com updates. It's like, hey, this is the drinking table over here. And it's just 8 guys just getting shit-faced drunk while we're doing hand-for-hand. And, yeah, it's a good thing to see. It's if you're dead sober over there trying to play good. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be that. And hopefully they get some of the kinks worked out. There were extreme issues in hand-for-hand play, and at the end of the night, it probably took about an hour and a half from the time we dealt the last hand to where I could actually leave, and that's not ideal.
Wow.
But yeah, that tends to happen. I mean, the first year they did the Colossus, I was actually a World Series of Poker dealer, and they were so fucked up on what to do that there were 21 of us in the Miranda room, all just sitting there on empty tables. We sat there for 8 hours, never dealing a hand, making the same money as anyone else, moving from table to table to table and taking breaks. Meanwhile, in the next room, I found out dealers were going for hours without a push because they had no one to do it, even though we're in there literally doing nothing. that changed the next year. So hopefully it tends to take them a year to work these things out, but I hope it sticks around too.
So is it just me, or should the World Series be running an event on the 4th of July that costs $17.76? I mean, doesn't that seem to make sense? Why is nobody doing this?
I mean, it's a really nice pun and everything, but no one wants to play a tournament on the night of July 4th.
It's... I mean, you could call it like the Freedom or the Patriot. I mean,
absolutely.
There's so many things that you could do with this. You get a special red, white, and blue bracelet. I mean, this is a thing that you can do. You can even start it early, end it at like 6 o'clock. Call it, like at whatever a usual dinner break would be. End it for the day there. Let people go out, get shit-faced, start it up again the next day. I mean, there's potential here for greatness. And by the way, I want 10% of the rake on the first time if this ever actually does happen. Yeah, that's my finder's fee.
I mean, you have hit on something that they've figured out, which is give a tournament a weird buy-in, give it a dumbass name, possibly a guarantee, and people will show up by the thousands to play it. So you might be onto something.
All right. I got another one in mind, too, but I'm going to save that one for when I actually sit down with the authorities at Caesars. Because clearly they're going to give a shit about what I have to say.
Jack Effel's on next week, right?
Yeah, clearly.
You told me. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, this is episode number 2, so clearly we're big enough to get somebody like Jack Effel or Negreanu. I know that you've been stalking him enough. I'm sure you've got him locked in the trunk of your Prius out there, so we can get him in here for next episode, right?
Yeah, restraining order ends in 45 days.
Oh shit. So one of the big controversies this year is how the GPI, the Global Poker Index, has changed their Player of the Year rankings. Now, this is something that I know Andrew's been paying very close attention to. Take it away. Tell us why this is so controversial this year.
Because Negreanu should be fucking Player of the Year.
You say that like every week.
It's a yearly
thing. It's not a weekly thing.
It's with Player of the Year, it's sort of like anything. It's sort of like it's sort of like payout structures go for tournaments, and you can't have it's with a sliding scale. You can't have just pay 1% of the field because then it'd just be Fedor, and nobody wants to play with that, and you can't play 90% because then everyone's just paying rake, and no one's going to play those tournaments. So it's sort of the same thing where you have a lot of low-level people that come in, and they grind the entire summer. A lot of the lower buy-ins, the 1500s, the 1Ks, etc., and they grind a whole schedule every single day. And those players should have a chance to make Player of the Year if they do well. And then you have obviously the pros with who play pretty much exclusively 10Ks and higher, and who should also have an equal but not above. Who should also have an equal chance to make Player of the Year. And this year it seems like they tilted it a little bit more so towards the smaller buy-in events. It's majorly based on ROI. So Negreanu, for example, he got 4th in the he final tabled the tag team event, the 10K tag team, and anyone who had a min cash in Colossus earned more Player of the Year points above him for that finish. So there's different things that should be adjusted. I think there will be. There was another player, David Bach. He won 2 events. He wasn't even top 20. So there's definitely some things I think that need to be adjusted, and I think enough players have complained about it to where I think they'll probably look to try and balance out the scales next year. But that was one of the bigger things that happened this year. Even if Negreanu had ended up winning the 50K Player's Choice, he wouldn't have really even had much of a shot besides like final tabling the main of Player of the Year.
He's won it twice in the past, but that was under a different formula. So I guess I'm wondering why GPI, maybe you don't know this, but why they would futz with the formula to begin with. I mean, I know that you said that some of the players were coming in and playing a full slate of events, the 1Ks, the 1500s, and things like that, and didn't have a shot compared to the other guys. But why overcorrect like that?
I'm not really sure. I think they just went with a generic formula and they went to see, okay, let's just base it on ROI. That's a big thing in poker, and so we should just do that. And then obviously winning $1 million off a 565 buy-in in the Colossus, the person who won the Colossus was leading player of the year for a while because that's an incredible ROI. Whereas main cashing a 10K, even though it's equal to maybe final tabling a lot of the 1Ks, it's you only main cash and beat like 150 players to do that. So they're I think they just definitely overcorrected and tilted it way more towards to where, unless you're a pro who's also, there are pros who do the 10Ks and higher and will also play the giant and the 1500s and the 3Ks simply to try and chase the player of the year. But Negreanu was not one of those players. He's pretty much exclusively 10Ks and higher.
And cash games don't count at all, correct?
Right. Yeah, cash games are not a thing for player of the year.
It's crazy. If it's based on ROI, would then not the winner of the main event just have just a tremendous boost to the point where it would be a huge percentage of the stuff? Like that's how the first thing you should do when designing a player of the year thing is, will the person who wins the main event just win this player of the year every year? I'm guessing that they've looked more into it than me, but that's whenever you design a player of the year type thing, that's got to be the first thing is, will the winner of the biggest event just have a huge
right? Because you can if you oversample, like even in a survey, you can discount the weight of some of those events. I know, like even the Orleans with their leaderboard, because they used to do a tournament leaderboard. I don't know if they still do. But their Friday night tournament is so huge that the winner of that, the points were worth like, what, 60%?
Yeah, it was like 65% at the time.
Yeah, so that seems strange that GPI didn't figure out that that's something that they should have looked into before launching this thing.
The history of poker in general and the World Series of Poker in specific is constantly overcorrecting to one side or another every year, which is, eventually they'll get it right, or maybe never get it right, but we'll always have something to talk about.
That's good for people like us that have a podcast.
Yeah, I believe I forget the exact payouts for the or payouts in terms of player of the year points that the main gives. It is quite a few. The giant is also worth a lot, as that has well over $1 million in the prize pool now. But I believe it's adjusted to where it's not a guaranteed thing, to where you still have to have a decent amount of points before, with everyone else that's been grinding and has several hundred points accumulated already to go ahead and just win player of the year outright.
I mean, I know it had its issues before. I know Ben Lamb won it. I think that was 2014. He finished like 4th in the main event, won another event, and I think he cashed in another event. Those are the only 3 events he played the entire year, and won the player of the year. So that also feels wrong.
Yeah,
in the other direction.
But again, it's overcorrection one way to the other to the other. I mean, there has to be a happy medium in there somewhere. Also, I really hope that the noise from the fridge either A, goes away, or B, isn't getting picked up by the mic, because that would be super annoying. Also, because I don't want to talk to my property managers about it.
The wonders of sound engineering.
Oh my god. Well, this is what I get for buying like $30 microphones, because you touch the stand and it comes through louder than I... Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's from me hitting the stand. And you can... Oh, god.
You shouldn't be hitting the stand.
Yeah, no, I just... what I really shouldn't be doing is doing, like, visual stuff on what's essentially a radio broadcast, but what can you do?
Hey, doctor, it hurts when I do this. Well, then don't do that.
All right, now that we're laughing so much, let's talk about people losing their jobs. So, we know that very recently the Hard Rock in Monte Carlo have closed their poker rooms. The Luxor... Oh, god fucking damn it.
Boing, which is just like ended up boing whenever someone.
I probably that's actually not a bad
jars
idea.
of my.
Fucking hell. So very recently, the Monte Carlo and Hard Rock both closed their poker rooms. Luxor just gave away all of their promo money. They announced that they're closing. I think they're still open, but I think everybody thinks they're closed, so nobody's actually going there right now. But I know that there was a Poker Crowd vlog where we talked about going there recently. So with that, we have heard, and maybe this is breaking news for some people, but we have heard that the MGM resorts are planning on closing one of their other rooms. Now, they haven't announced which one yet, but it makes the most sense for either the Mandalay Bay or the Excalibur. Both of them are kind of close to each other, and they're close to the MGM, which is the bigger room in that area. They're all being cannibalized by the Aria, which is another MGM property, so it's a little, they're eating their own player pool, so to speak. So I think that the next one to go down is going to be the Excalibur. It seems like the dingier of the two between that and Mandalay Bay. I guess the Mirage is also a possibility, but I can't imagine why they'd close the only poker room that they own on the north side of the Strip. But the Excalibur compared to Mandalay Bay is a little bit dirtier. The games run a little bit cheaper. They're running more 2-6 spread and 2-4 limit than they are 1-2 no limit. It seems like that would be the one to go, but I don't know. Andrew, what do you think? You think it'll be Excalibur or Mandalay Bay?
I'm not entirely sure. It would seem like from a geographical standpoint that Mandalay Bay might make a little bit more sense. It's just all the way down literally at the very end of the Strip. There's nothing past that, and then there's already a tram connecting the Mandalay Bay and Excalibur. Excalibur is still relatively pretty close to the main part of the Strip. A lot of people see it. I think it's more of an iconic part of Vegas, I guess, sort of like the Luxor was. Like everyone knew what the Pyramid Hotel was. But I think Mandalay Bay might make a little bit more sense. Although, if it is Excalibur, I will tell you I'll be extremely saddened to see their fantastic daily tournament go away. I asked for, if you go up to their $45 tournament when they run 2 or 3 times a day and ask for a structure seat, the floorman will simply gladly tell you, oh, it's simple, they just double every level with 5K starting, so it's they don't last all that long.
Yeah, no, that's a brutal one. You and I ran one of those not too long ago. Somehow I still busted out of it in the second fucking level, but what can you do?
Well, I mean, you start with 15 whole blinds. How could you? It's so deep. That is the only tournament I chopped the first one I ever played heads up and went, well, I am never, ever playing this tournament again. Most people, when they win one, feel like, yeah, I'll play this again, papers over some of the flaws, but not that one. As far as which of these 2 rooms is going to close, I would have to imagine that. Wow.
Yeah, that's getting bad.
Sorry, you were saying?
What was it? Oh, okay, yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, the Excalibur is the one that should stay out of the 2. It's the one with the most foot traffic. The Mandalay Bay is tucked away over there next to the sports book. It gets some foot traffic itself, but it's so small, it can be easy to miss. And Excalibur is a room that has in the past had good action. I don't know about necessarily today, but that would be the one I'd keep if I had to pick between the 2.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. I have enjoyed both rooms, but I've actually won at Excalibur. I've only played Mandalay Bay a couple of times, lost there both times. That's not the reason why I think it would make more sense to keep the Mandalay Bay, just because I want more chances to go in there and win. I just think that as a nicer room, and as MGM, since they own places like the Aria and the Bellagio, and they own these really nice places, that keeping up to that kind of standard makes a little more sense from a corporate perspective. I mean, let's face it, the guys that are running, or guys and women that are running the company, are all MBAs, and MBAs are soulless and heartless and thoughtless and just think along corporate lines. So for that reason, that's why I think Mandalay Bay. But I actually went and made a list. Now, I moved here in 2006. I made a list of all of the poker rooms that have closed since I moved here. Now, I'm not saying that I am necessarily the cause of all these rooms closing, but it does feel like I am a little bit of a jinx.
It can't hurt.
Yeah. So we've had Hooters, Silverton, the M Resort, Texas Station, the Aliante, Circus, Tropicana, Link, Paris. Actually, Paris may have closed before I got here. I have to double check that. The Tuscany, the Eastside Cannery, which is the home to my favorite tournament story ever. It's a Rob Kramer one. I'll tell that in a minute. Mm-hmm. The Plaza, the El Cortez, the Rampart, because they had a room for about 3 weeks. Ellis Island, who had a room for about 2 weeks. Yep. The Fitzgerald, the Hilton, Sunset Station, Riviera, Luxor, Hard Rock, Monte Carlo, the fabulous Joker's Wild, and then we also had the Sahara and Bills, which really they didn't. Well, the Sahara closed their room, and Bills was more when they renovated from Bills to the Cromwell. They just kind of renovated without a room, so it wasn't necessarily that Bills closed the room. It was they got bought, and when they remodeled and everything else, they got rid of it. So, of all of those rooms, which one do you think I missed the most? Patrick, what do you think?
I mean, if we're talking qualitatively, it should be the M Resort, which was the only one of those rooms that at one point had a really, humming business and was truly and legitimately the best place to play for locals down in that area around the time that it opened. But I'm going to guess, since it's you, it's one of the small, stupid ones. So, lay it on me, buddy.
Andrew, what do you think? I'm going to let you guess before I say it.
I have literally no idea. If your name started with Daniel, I would follow you more, but I have no idea, so I'll just take a stab in the dark and say the Cannery, because that sounds like a place you would go, because it sounds like it has maybe food.
Eastside Cannery, first of all, I do like the Cannery casinos, the two of them. The decor is like 1940s Americana. It's actually kind of a cool place. Eastside Cannery, the story I was alluding to was a buddy of mine and Patrick's played a daily tournament there. They were 9-handed. They got through the entire break and registration period as 9-handed. Our buddy busted out, and then immediately when he busted out, the other 8 players chopped it 8 ways even.
I've never even heard that story.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, yeah, that's one of the best ones.
That's pretty classic.
But the answer is the Tropicana.
Uh-huh.
And the room was beautiful. It was right next to the sports book, but it didn't feel like one of those rooms that was right next to a sports book.
It's true.
The tables had this super soft leather rail going around the entire thing. It was just a wonderful room, and they had a refrigerator at the back where you could get your own drinks at any time. You didn't have to wait for a cocktail waitress, didn't have to tip anybody. It was free for players. That is a room that I missed tremendously.
It was fantastic. Unfortunately, if you're going to hitch your wagon to a rising poker star, Jamie Gold in 2010 or so was not your best bet.
Yeah, that was probably a misstep.
That definitely could not have helped.
Yeah. Yeah, that was unfortunate. But now that we've gotten the morbidity out of the way of talking about rooms that are closing, we have heard rumors about 2 different rooms reopening. First being the Palms. The Palms was recently purchased by Station Casinos. We have heard through the grapevine and through dealers that Station dealers are being told that if they want to relocate or get shifts over at the new room, that they should sign up now. That was a room that, when it finally went away under the old Palms, was next to the sportsbook, and it felt like it was next to the sportsbook. It was super bright with all the TV screens around, but you couldn't really see the screens for what they were because they had that stupid half wall that just was high enough to block out about half of the view that you needed. Super loud, really hard to hear bets and sizing and raises and everything else. Couldn't understand what the dealer was saying half the time. That was a problem. So hopefully they do a better job with it this time around.
the main thing that they need to quit is the poker room manager embezzling large amounts of money from the jackpot fund.
Well, that certainly doesn't help anything.
No, that was really the death knell of that room. But yes, it was also not a good room. But yes.
Yeah, well, it was small too. It was like 6 tables when it closed. Now the old room that they had that was back further towards the reward center, that was a much better room. I like that one a lot better. I like the placement of it, I should say. I don't think I ever actually played in it when it was there, but hopefully it's there and not in the next to the sports book again.
Yeah, that was an ill-fated idea, but they put it there because they actually let the Cantor Sportsbook Company run the poker room. It wasn't even the casino running the poker room. Uh-huh. And that's just a bad idea right off the bat. Nobody should be running a poker room as a side venture. It's hard enough to do if it's your expertise, much less letting a bunch of sportsbook people try and run it.
Right. I wonder, was that the downfall of the Silverton as well?
I'm not really well versed in what happened at the Silverton, but it was a very similar,
Because I know they're a Cantor.
Yeah, right off the sportsbook. It would not surprise me if it were a similar thing, but yeah, it's not a good idea. You should get somebody who knows how to run like a poker room to run a poker room.
Yeah. Oh, that is unfortunate. The other room that we have heard that is possibly reopening is the one that Patrick guessed earlier is my favorite, the M. Now, this is a room that closed presumably because all of their business got cannibalized by both the South Point and Green Valley Ranch, which were both in that relative area. The games at those 2 casinos seem to run bigger and seem to run more often than they did at the M, although the M, I think, has the better daily tournaments out of the 3. But right near where the M is now is a brand new master plan community called Inspirata. And I think that because that has been built up so much that they're starting to get a lot more people knocking on the door at the M saying, we want a poker room. And I'm wondering if that has a lot to do with it. Hopefully it does. I would love to see another room there, even though I'm moving to literally as far away from the M as you could possibly be and still be in what's considered Las Vegas. But I would love to see that room get back up there.
That was a room that it opened in 2009, and they poured so much promo money into that room. It was a ghost town at South Point. It was a ghost town at Green Valley Ranch. I was right near there at the time, and it was the place to play. And they slowly but surely burnt through all of that goodwill. They had some truly awful floor people, and it was a real shame to see what happened to that room. But I feel that ran right, that room could be a huge success. As a prolific drinker of beer, I always enjoyed it. It was right next to the 32 Degrees bar.
That's right.
Much less, most places you'd be hard pressed to get a bottle of Newcastle. They had a 40 long list of draft beers that you could get at the poker table. A great joy to do that, but
I forgot about that. I remember our buddy who would always just ask the cocktail waitress for recommendations and just say, yeah, whatever you want to bring me. I'll drink it, because maybe he's an alcoholic, actually, now that I stopped to think about it. That's
sort of sounds like he might have a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, maybe that's more of a problem than I realized. But the M used to host what was it called? Hollywood Poker Open. Even after the room closed, they still had the events down there. Now, I know that the HPO is either been bought out or they went under, but I know that they're not running an event this summer. It'll be interesting to see if they hook their wagon onto another type of tour like that, like maybe the Heartland Poker Tour?
There's Heartland, there's Card Player Poker Tour. Any casino that really wants to can get some kind of poker tour going. I just noticed today that the also ran casino in Biloxi, the Scarlet Pearl that just opened with a extremely failing poker room, is getting a Card Player Poker Tour stop this year. So it's just a matter, if they want one, they can get one.
Okay.
So hopefully they do, and hopefully it's not a disaster, because that room has the potential, and it is an extremely nice casino.
Oh yeah, no, it's beautiful in there. I have no reason to go there now that they don't have a poker room.
Yeah,
but
it was just and as far as people who drive there, it was one of the ones just like the Wynn, where it was right off the parking garage, and it was just a perfect thing. It used to be that you could cash out comps into literal cash. It was almost everything you could want in a locals casino. And I was sad when it closed, and I hope they can bring it back to its former glory.
Now, Andrew, as a professional player around town, I know that you're looking for, better games and et cetera and so on. But what kind of thing can a new room offer to somebody like you that would get you in there, and maybe not even as a regular, but just get you in there on the occasional basis?
Having some good tournaments, just offering some decent guarantees where the blinds don't double every level, and it seems to be that high hand promotions tend to bring in quite a few people whenever Venetian is running their thing. It seems to be they get nearly double the amount of tables that they normally have running when they have their high hand promo going. So people seem to enjoy that, and so if people seem to enjoy playing in a poker room, usually the games are pretty good. And so just having some cool new promos that maybe diversify them from other places around the strip would have me to spend an extraordinarily more waste incredibly more gas going to the M as opposed to everything else. Whenever I used to come into Vegas, I would always see the M, and I saw how incredibly nice the M was, and then 20 miles away it seemed was still Vegas way off in the distance, and I was like, what happened here? Was someone playing Battleship with the floor plans, and they said, hey, how about B2 for the M Resorts? And then they built up Vegas. Oh, that was a complete mess. We were off by 30 minutes.
Oh man, it's unfortunate because, like you guys have said, the M is beautiful. It's a wonderful resort. I actually used to go there on my birthday, rent a cabana and hang out by the pool all day. And the poker room was great. It's easy to get into. They actually used to run a promo. I don't know if they still do, and it was something like 20 or 30% off hotel room rates with a California driver's license, because they figure if you're coming in from California, that's the first one you see, and then you get the discount. Why wouldn't you stop there? But like you said, if you still see actual Las Vegas off in the distance, then you're going to be a little more tempted to just keep driving and head into the city there. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's totally correct. You'd see, because it's not the only casino that's like that. There's a few on that very long road of 15. There's a few where they have we have Fast and Furious cars, we have Batman's car, and just bringing in anybody to try and get them to stop for gas at least, and then you saw this M, which is at least a 4-star, maybe 5-star resort, and it's still just not anywhere close.
Yeah.
So how do you think the World Series overall? We talked a little bit about last podcast of the Colossus being down. We talked a little bit about the Play of the Year points. How do you think the main events coming up? First flight is Saturday. I don't think any of us are playing in a 10K buy-in. I'm certainly not.
I can't afford a 365. Why the fuck would I play a 10K?
Right. Well, you sell action. That's what a lot of these 24 kids that are playing the 50K high rollers. They have 4% of themselves, but they're still grinding those, and traveling everywhere. But
I personally pledge that if I win the Giant outright, I will play the main event. Thank you.
But only if you win, not if you get second.
Second place, I am no chance I'm playing. Not a chance.
I forget what the question was.
How do you think we talked a little about Colossus, Player of the Year, etc. How do you think overall, just from a wide angle lens of how the World Series fared this summer?
One thing that the World Series prides themselves on, because it's easy to come up with measurements by which the World Series is trending downward, since Black Friday and all that sort of thing happened. But the thing they seem to pride themselves on when I worked for them was they would always talk about how the total number of entries across all tournaments throughout the whole World Series goes up every year. Now, how they do that is artificially juicing these things, starting off with the Colossus, and that, of course, gave it a big bump, and then that sort of thing. And then this year, the Giant is another fresh set of things. Run more deep stacks, but I believe that is what the corporate bean counters at the World Series consider success: is total number of entries rising year on year.
Right, and that's easy for them to do because they just add more events. It seems like the World Series gets longer and longer every year.
Very much
we're up
so.
to 7 weeks now, I think.
Yeah, they're up to 74 events this year, which was another record number of bracelet events.
Yeah, so and especially if they add my Patriot event on July 4th, then clearly they're just going to keep going up and up and up, and
they have to wait until it's the 77th event.
Oh yeah. I think you're onto something there. That's pretty good. But I mean, the Justice Boners are going to be just flying because everybody's going to be so happy to see an event that's so patriotic on July 4th. It'll just be a wonderful thing. I don't know what the fuck I'm babbling about. But yeah, I mean, it's easy for them to inflate numbers when they're just adding more and more events and they're extending it out longer and longer every year. I wonder, though, I mean, I know that even though they're getting more entries every year, I wonder how many of them are unique people every year. Do we have any kind of statistic on that? Is that available anywhere?
I cannot imagine that that's available.
Probably not publicly. I'm sure they have it.
These are the people that were let at least one guy re-enter the main event, the tournament that's not allowed for re-entry. The only reason they caught him, this was, I believe, 2015, is that the kid sits down next to a pro, I believe it was Christian Harder, and goes, "So, buddy, how many bullets are you on? This is number 2 for me." Like, you can't re-enter the main event. That's not a thing you can do. So something tells me they're not keeping a real good score on multiple entries. But it's I guess there's more unique people just because bring in a lower buy-in tournament, give it a fancy name and award a bracelet for it. That's going to bring in some new players. Like that, the Giant, I think, is driving most of their new business this year.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept, having the multiple flights on multiple Fridays rather than just, all in one weekend and then playing it out at once. I want to say I like it. I think as a local it makes more sense for me, but I mean, what do you do if you're somebody that flew in, just said, fuck it, fire a bullet at it like day one, you got to fly back home to England or Japan or wherever else, and then all of a sudden you've made day 2. Do you just punt? I can't imagine anybody does that. Then they fly back for maybe an extra couple $100.
Right, yeah, for a $700 cash out. Yeah. That was one of my, when I first saw that this event was running, I was like, well, there's certainly players that come here for the entire series, but there's also a lot of people that come here and don't come here for the entire series, and especially if you're grinding like 1K and below and doing a lot of the other events around town, you usually don't have a bankroll to go ahead and just grind out all 2 months of the series. So I thought that was something that's interesting when you do, it is above a min cash for you normally, I think, if you make day 2 of the Giant, but
it is just above a min cash.
Right.
For my flight, we bought in for $365. They paid us out $666 when we ended day 2. Why they paid us out, I have no idea. Doesn't really make any sense to me. But we did get our barely more, not even double the buy-in.
Right.
I imagine the person who finishes last on day 2 will also get some money. But yeah, that's the thing. I have a standing bet with a friend of mine on the number of people who will flat not show up to day 2. It's probably going to be around 800-ish entrants on day 2, depending on how many they get tomorrow for the final flight. I'm going to guess it's right around 10 people that will just show up and not show up and blind off their stacks.
You think that few?
I do. I think for the most part people will show up. I think that's right around the number of people who just will not care. Some people somehow will forget about it. We'll think it's July 10th instead of July 8th or whatever.
Right.
But I think that's about the number. I've made bad bets before, Lord knows, but we'll see how that one is. I hope that wsop.com is keeping a good count for me, so I can settle on that bet.
Well, yeah, the one thing I did want to come back to on the rooms opening and closing and everything else is, what do we as poker players think about rooms closing, and are we better off with having a lot of really tiny rooms? Are we better off having just a few big rooms that offer a ton of different games, or are we better with like kind of a happy medium? Patrick, what do you think?
I mean, happy medium is always the easy answer. I'd say more rooms can help because there's always, almost everyone in town can tell you about this special game that only they found and whatever. And basically every good player is just trying to duck all the other good players. Nobody wants to sit down at a table and have 9 other, jackpot hunting nits that are just like them staring back at them. We're all looking for the clueless local, the tourist who doesn't know what they're doing, and having more options available can tend to help on that front.
Right.
But yeah, I go for more rooms, but financially it doesn't make sense for those rooms, and I think we're heading towards a congealing of the rooms. But the problem is, as anyone who's dealt with staff at Bellagio can tell you, if a room gets really big and doesn't feel like it has to really go for your business anymore, then you will not feel well taken care of as a customer of that room. And that would be my concern if we were down to 5 huge poker rooms, is that basically every single one of them would be like, well, screw you, where else are you going to go? One of the other 4 rooms.
Yeah, you can't vote with your wallet
exactly.
at that point.
Yeah, rake raises, promotion cuts, all those sort of things are on the table at that point.
Even so, in the Bellagio's case, even so far as to where you see players, if you're playing 1-3, how about you go in the corner of the sportsbook by all the TVs and where there's no cell phone chargers or anything like that. If you're playing 2-5 or above, yeah, come on in our actual poker room. But 1-3, yeah, you have to go to the other desk.
100%. That's a thing, and Venetian used to have all the players. And then they're like, oh, hey, we're just going to raise the rake and cut the promotions.
And cut comps, too.
They are struggling to get back a fraction of what they had.
Yeah. Well, it didn't help that they cut the room in half, too.
Well, there's that, too. But it's just these poker rooms, when they think they have a firm grip on the market, tend to make very poor decisions.
Yeah. Well, and I completely agree. My concern with having too many rooms is that you run the risk of having too many poorly run rooms, and you get bad managers and everything else. I played a tournament at Ellis Island when they had it, and there were 6 of us. It was single table, couldn't even fill a full table, and sitting next to each other were a husband and wife, and they were just showing each other their cards, and they were asking like they were playing at home. And I asked the floor what they were going to do about it. He's like, who cares? It's a friendly game. Didn't stop him, didn't do anything else. And obviously the room's gone, and, it lasted all of, a couple of weeks. But it's unfortunate when you get people like that think that this is their living room as opposed to, I don't want to say a serious place of business because it shouldn't be. Like, we shouldn't feel like we have to wear a shirt and tie to go play poker, but at the same time, there are rules, there are, procedures, there are things that can and can't be done at the table, and
it's a constant battle.
Yeah.
To be sure, that is, at the place where I'm employed, we have a ongoing battle currently between players who want to check down every board to try and win promotions, as opposed to us trying to stop them, and we look like the worst kind of damn mall cops and whatever. Be like, hey, stop that over there. You can't do that. No one gives a shit in the entire room. But on the other hand, there has to be a line drawn somewhere, or a tourist coming in it looks like 8 people playing a kitchen table game, and they're the rube that came in to get fleeced, and no one wants to feel like that.
Right. Well, I appreciate the input, Paul Blart. So that's wow, I got nothing on that. All right, fuck it, I'm leaving that joke in, even though I've bombed.
Yeah, I think that's about it. The main is this Saturday, and so they'll run day 1A Saturday, B Sunday, and then the last day of is day C on Monday, and then that'll kick off. It'll really looking for. That's another episode. I can't believe we haven't. It's likely another episode. Talk about Poker Go, No More November 9. They're live streaming the main event this year. We just completely bombed on that, and we listened to 15 rooms that are no longer open that closed.
Well, you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. But we can definitely talk about Poker Go and presumably what kind of a mess it's been. Like, I've not read a positive thing about this thing anywhere on the internet so far. I didn't even bother signing up because I saw so many negative reviews about it. But you're right. We'll get into that next episode, and we'll talk about. At that point, the main event will have been going on for a couple of days, and we'll talk about how things are going, any surprises, anything like that. I think we have a special guest lined up for next week as well, hopefully next week. So that'll be a great one, especially if you're a big fan of 2+2. You'll know who I'm talking about. Andrew doesn't even know. He's looking at me like I just kicked Negreanu in the balls. So I think that's going to do it. Anything else for the good of the order, Patrick?
It was Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 that was set in Vegas. Thank you.
And this is why he'll never be back on the show. Andrew, anything else?
I hope Negreanu wins the bracelet this year. He's running out of events.
Yeah, and that beard's starting to look a little scraggly. All right, thank you so much for joining us on Seat Open in Sin City. All of our contact information, Twitter, email, Instagram, everything is going to be down below where you can read all of the hashtags and description and all that nonsense there. We are going to be trying to post episodes once a week, I hope, if we can actually keep a normal schedule, which may or may not happen, but the more comfortable we get with these things, the more easily it'll come to us, and we'll be able to put out episodes more and more frequently. So, again, thank you so much for joining us, and get the hell out of my house.